Let me welcome you all to this session, which is on learning networks as a means for influencing policy processes. And thanks to all for choosing this session. And I believe all of you who have chosen this session would agree that the need for and urgency for policy reforms or development in some case is imperative, especially if we are to achieve agroecological transformation. And we also all, I'm sure, acknowledge that policy processes take place at multiple levels and involve a range of different stakeholders. And there are many challenges that are bound in these processes. One being how to make the voices of those most affected heard. And two, how to influence policy making and implementation in the direction of greater equity, sustainability, and inclusion. So in this session, speakers will share their experiences of working with diverse stakeholders, including farmers, over many years through learning networks focused on dialogue and capacity building to influence policy processes. So we have three speakers. That is Rosemary Borja. I hope I've pronounced it the right way. Yeah. Rosemary is an economist specialized in rural development with extensive experience in participatory monitoring and evaluation systems for agricultural programs in the Andes. She is currently director of the Eco Rural Foundation, which promotes agroecology transition processes through research and development programs in the Indian region of Ecuador. And we also have Diamond Cambewa, who is a social scientist specialized in the field of sociology of rural development. He conducts research on traditional institutions, family, descent, kinship, policies, and strategies for rural development and agricultural extension. Diamond, publishes on customary land tenure, the diffusion of agricultural technologies, farmer innovations, extensive policies, and sustainable agriculture. And finally, we have Richard Rambo, who is also a socioeconomist with 20 years experience in research, consultants, and facilitation and training relating to agriculture and natural resource management. His expertise includes livelihood analysis, stakeholder and institution analysis, enhancing stakeholder communication, planning and engagement, on-farm research, formal survey, and participatory approaches. He has long-term experience in Tanzania, Caribbean, Pacific, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, and many other countries. Current focus is on capacity strengthening of agricultural innovation systems, climate change responses, agro-wild biodiversity management, governance, and service delivery in agriculture. So that's the panel we have for today. And in terms of the process for today, each speaker will have 8 minutes to share their experience and reflections. As you can see, time is really not our best friend, so please try to keep time. Otherwise, I will ask you to do so, but hopefully I don't have to. And our first speaker will be Rosemary, who will focus on strengthening capacity to influence local agriculture and food policy with indigenous and mestizo women producers. This will be followed by Richard, who will provide experience of Sustainable Agriculture Intensification Program called SAILA with the National Learning Alliances, which are multi-stakeholder platforms, or I'll let him say that for himself. And then we'll end the speakers with Diamond, who will share experience of learning dialogues with FRNs to bring their vision for food systems to district and national dialogues, feeding into a process of policy making and implementation. After they have finished their presentations, I will facilitate a brief discussion among the panelists, and then take questions from the audience. And that should basically take our 1 hour. Yeah. Oh, it's here now. Okay, sorry, I was using mine, not knowing that I had this. Yeah. All right. So, without further ado, Rosemary first.
Yeah. Thank you, Prudence. I am going to share my screen, please.
Yeah. You are muted. You are muted. Ross, you are muted. Yeah, good.
Thanks, Prudence. Buenos días y buenas tardes con todos y todas. Es un gusto estar hoy día aquí y muchas gracias por esta invitación. Hoy día quiero compartir con ustedes algunos elementos sobre cómo el trabajo con asociaciones de mujeres, pequeñas productoras agroecológicas, ha logrado influenciar a los actores en el ambiente alimentario. La capacidad de agencia es vista como esa capacidad de los pequeños productores para posicionarse y tomar decisiones efectivas en sus esfuerzos por redefinir las relaciones en los sistemas alimentarios. Esta experiencia tiene lugar en comunidades rurales en la Sierra Centro del Ecuador, provincia de Cotopaxi. Trabajamos con asociaciones de mujeres, de productoras, que aunque pertenecen a diferentes comunidades, se comunican, interactúan y comparten. Tienen relaciones, aunque no son redes formales. La producción de estas productoras son pequeñas, en huertos familiares de 1,000 a 2,000 metros cuadrados de extensión, y al ser diseñadas individualmente, las chacras varían mucho entre sí. Algunas agricultoras tienen huertos con una gran diversidad de especies y variedades, lo que denota su interés en experimentar. Debido a que los hombres generalmente migran, las mujeres son las responsables de las actividades productivas y reproductivas, es decir, se encargan de arar, de sembrar, de cosechar, de cocinar, de limpiar y también de los niños. La dinámica organizativa y productiva llevó a estas familias a explorar oportunidades de mercado, aun cuando los excedentes son relativamente pequeños. Lo que sí hay que resaltar aquí es que este tipo de unidades productivas representan la gran mayoría en el país. La agricultura familiar campesina en Ecuador contribuye con alrededor del 60% de los alimentos que son consumidos en las ciudades. ¿Cómo fue el proceso de aprendizaje? El proceso de investigación, acción, aprendizaje que impulsamos con las productoras fue muy intenso y participativo. Llevamos a cabo múltiples actividades con el fin de entender qué es lo que estaba pasando, pero también cuáles eran los sueños de las productoras más allá del tema de acceso a mercados. Realizamos planes de vida y diagnósticos comunitarios y conjuntamente construimos una agenda y planes de trabajo. Las actividades de aprendizaje incluyen intercambios, campesinos, giras y visitas, talleres, encuentros, etc. El seguimiento y acompañamiento al proceso por las mismas productoras y por los facilitadores fue clave, ya que permitió documentar los aprendizajes y también las innovaciones. En este proceso de fortalecimiento de capacidades, las mismas productoras realizaban sus costos de producción y registraron sus salidas a mercado. El proceso de acción-aprendizaje ha sido muy dinámico y nos hemos ido adaptando continuamente. Aquí podemos ver que durante las actividades, las productoras comparten sus experiencias y fortalecen sus conocimientos a través de la experimentación campesina e identifican formas de mejorar sus chacras a través de resolver sus problemas, sus inquietudes en el mismo grupo. El enfoque que tuvimos fue avanzar en la transición agroecológica y en identificar oportunidades para vincularse o crear redes alternativas de alimentos. Estas redes han permitido múltiples relaciones y conexiones entre diferentes actores y han fomentado el flujo de información al interior de las asociaciones, pero también dentro de las comunidades. Los mercados son vistos como espacios de aprendizaje social que permite otro tipo de relaciones. La gente se encuentra, hay relaciones personales, alimentos saludables que tienen que ver mucho con la construcción de relaciones de confianza. Aprendimos que el diálogo representa un espacio directo de aprendizaje in situ que provoca cambios organizacionales, personales, sociales, mediante las prácticas en el aprovisionamiento y consumo de alimentos. Las asociaciones han generado impactos mucho más allá de las cuestiones económicas y han influenciado la forma como las comunidades conciben y realizan la producción. Hay que destacar, sin embargo, que numerosos cambios han sido logrados en sus vidas familiares y en sus comunidades, así como en sus recursos. Han logrado una mayor visibilidad de la agroecología, han incidido en la política local de los alimentos y en la conducta de las autoridades locales. Las productoras han abogado por estos cambios en base a su experiencia y al conocimiento y se sienten referentes para ser consultadas por los gobiernos locales, con quienes han promovido sistemas participativos de sellos agroecológicos y certificación local bajo el marco de las políticas y programas del Ministerio de Agricultura. Todos estos esfuerzos lo que han buscado es lograr políticas que sean más inclusivas y favorables para la agroecología en los territorios y que la propuesta agroecológica pueda ser expandida. En Ecuador existe una rica base de experiencias agroecológicas.
You have 2 minutes, eh?
Yeah, thank you, Prudence. De agricultura familiar campesina que junto a la integración de los distintos actores vinculados con una agenda agroecológica podrían hacer el gran cambio para lograr políticas de fomento. Existe también una constitución y una ley de régimen de soberanía alimentaria que promueve la producción agroecológica, una alimentación sana y culturalmente apropiada. Desafortunadamente, las miradas oficiales están enfocadas en promover el agronegocio y la agroindustria. Actualmente se quiere debatir 2 procesos de ley donde es muy claro que los intereses empresariales priman sobre los intereses de la agricultura campesina. Si bien hay programas y proyectos que fomentan la agricultura familiar campesina, su importancia en el contexto nacional no es significativa si comparamos con lo que es destinado para la producción a gran escala. La inversión estatal en agricultura es marginal y se invierte menos del 1% del Producto Interno Bruto. El Ministerio de Agricultura tiende a reservar un presupuesto para proyectos agroindustriales. En conclusión, muy poco se puede esperar del sector oficial en términos de apoyar la agroecología y la agricultura familiar campesina. La agroecología deberá abrirse camino principalmente basada en los logros que esta última y sus aliados sean capaces de generar. Como reflexiones finales de todo este proceso y el involucramiento en los territorios, creemos entonces que la asociatividad y la acción colectiva...
Time is up.
Thank you, Prudence.
Your last statement.
Yeah. Ok. La asociatividad y la acción colectiva son elementos centrales en la capacidad de lograr cambios en la agenda política y en los espacios locales, como los mercados o los espacios institucionales. El ambiente político institucional en el país y en lo local tiene muchas disonancias, por lo cual hay que crear contratendencias. Las influencias deben generarse en lo local, que se creen las herramientas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis.
Wow. Thank you for the brilliant presentation. Unfortunately, time is not our friend, so, but all of you take solace that we have the slides and you can read them in your own good time. And if you can also follow up with the questions to Ross, and I'm sure she'll be glad to get back to you with any clarification. So we'll go to Richard now, and please speak a bit slowly so that the translators can keep pace with you.
Yeah,
I know it's
a reminder,
8 minutes and speak slowly, but choose your topic wisely. Yeah, all right.
I'll try. Yeah,
welcome.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall I share screen? Okay. Is that sharing now?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Richard Lambo. Work at Naturally. Outline some experiences and lessons from strengthening decision-making in agricultural policy processes through multi-stakeholder social learning in sub-Saharan Africa. So I think it's generally recognized now that there are multiple demands on agriculture and food systems, economic, social, and environmental. And agroecology informed processes are increasingly recognized as being important in transitioning to sustainable agricultural and food systems. However, there are very diverse stakeholders, diverse views and diverse perspectives on this, including even diverse views on the nature of agroecology, whether it's a science, movement, or practice, diverse views in agricultural systems, and diverse views on food systems. So the aim of this short presentation is to consider policy processes and how they relate to agroecology and food systems, and then to share the experience of a program called SILA, Sustainable Agricultural Intensification Research and Learning in Africa. So very briefly on policy, there are different perspectives on the nature of policy processes. For some people, it's straightforward that you have a problem, you look at, you set the agenda, you consider your policy options, you design your policy, you implement your policy, and then you evaluate whether the policy is being successfully implemented. But I think the reality most of us would recognize is actually much more complex, messy, and political in terms of policy processes. And probably this is the major reason why that policy implementation is often not as envisaged in policy design. With regard to agroecology, FAO have identified their 10 elements of agroecology, and these 10 elements each have policy process implications. One of the FAO's 10 elements is responsible governance, and this is a very specific element which is trying to strengthen policy processes, particularly transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. If we look at how agroecology is now moving from the agroecological level through to a food systems level, the complexity of the policy processes become much greater. And we need to think about these policy processes all the way through from the local level through to the global level. So what are the options for engaging with policy processes? There is the approach of lobbying, which of course is very popular in the USA to lobby particular parties to achieve particular aims. There's advocacy, where particular groups defend or make a case on behalf of others. There's science and evidence-based policymaking, where the argument is if you provide strong enough evidence or science, you will convince the policymakers this is the right way forward. And many donors have a strong belief in evidence-based policymaking. And for that reason, you'll often find in some parts of the world, you'll find policy documents which reflect the research evidence and the donor priorities, but the implementation is very weak. And this is for a number of reasons, including capacity issues, political economy issues, and the divergences between the beliefs of those who shaped or designed the policy and those who are implementing policy. There's also a confirmation bias, by which I mean people on the whole tend to make up their minds about things, and then they seek the evidence or the information to support their own arguments, rather than actually being open to new evidence. And thirdly, powerful actors in the policy process often shape the framing of policy issues. So who decides what the issues are around which policy is being created? So the uptake of this then is that it's important to build institutions that both embrace scientific good practice and achieve democratic representation. And this is being called by Parkhurst the good
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Thanks, Prudence. So multi-stakeholder social learning is one way of trying to achieve this good governance of evidence. And social learning is simply learning through social interaction. And structured multi-stakeholder social learning has increased as a way of trying to address complex natural resource management contexts, particularly at the local level. But there's been less attempts to do this at the national level. So SILA tried to do this at the national level, and SILA tried to create a learning alliance, both at national level and regionally across Africa, with a view to improving equitable, sustainable agricultural intensification. These learning alliances had multiple compositions: civil servants, private sector, NGOs, journalists, researchers, donors, elected representatives, and they had a facilitation team that Diamond will tell you more about. The three main themes were considered equity, trade-offs, and services, but these themes varied with country. So the complexity of these issues or themes vary tremendously from lower complexity, such as integrated management of fall armyworm in Ghana, livestock policy in Ghana and Ethiopia, ICT and extension services in Tanzania and Ethiopia, and customary land tenure issues in Malawi and Zambia, for example. These are just examples. So the process and the process outcome varied for each country, but we can see here these three examples. The fall armyworm, it led to national action planning and expenditure allocations changing. The ICT one in Ethiopia led to capacity strengthening of senior decision makers, a supportive network being created, and a clear pathway for policy implementation. And side trade-offs and extension services in Zambia led to much stronger motivation among subnational Ministry of Agricultural staff to apply trade-off analysis in the management of their programs. So what are the lessons? The lessons that we can perhaps get from this. Lesson one is that it's very important to try and to align with the priorities of the decision makers that you're trying to inform or influence. Number two, the decision makers that were part of these national learning alliances, they liked the informality of the network. And this attracted the senior decision makers. And that led to then the link to the formal decision-making processes that were taking place, for example, in the Ministry of Agriculture. Engaging diverse stakeholders is demanding and slow, but it's very important to bridge the gap between knowledge and value systems between different stakeholders. Constructive contestation may be necessary, and if you're going to have constructive contestation, you must build trust and create safe spaces between these diverse stakeholders. When you're
giving you half a minute
with stakeholders,
to wrap it up.
Wrapping up, yeah. Try to have a combination of open dialogue and more focused deliberative learning to inform decision making. Strong facilitation skills are needed. You need a clear structure and direction of where you're going. External partners can play an important part at changing organization systems levels so researchers can better inform this kind of multi-stakeholder social learning process. And finally, funding agencies and governments can play a role to improve the quality of the evidence governance systems by strengthening in-country capacity for multi-stakeholder social learning, but in a flexible and adaptive way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for that rich presentation. And there's a lot more in the slides, so Please, colleagues, enjoy reading the slides. We go to our last speaker. That's Damon.
Thank you, Prudence. I think I sent my my slides. Can they be shared?
Hopefully.
I can share if
because they're already there.
if that's the easiest.
Please.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
Okay, I just need Richard to take down his.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yep, just coming.
Yeah, thank you. Put in slide mode. Thank you so much, Prudence, for giving me the chance to present the experiences we have in Malawi with regards to multi-stakeholder social learning approach to influence policy processes. Can you go to the next slide? The context in which this work is being done is exactly what Richard has said. We appreciate the multiple demands on agriculture now, and the actors, the stakeholders in the agriculture and food systems are quite diverse. And I think this presentation is there to share the experiences we have had with the working with these people in different contexts. The next slide. Next slide. So the multi-stakeholder social learning, the multi-stakeholder social learning approach is being used for us is to enable decision makers deliver equitable policies that enable smaller farmers to benefit from development in agriculture and the investment that are there. And our approach has been to start from the community all the way to the national level, because these are different activities that they take place. And we think working with them, they can link up and hear the voices from the community. Next slide. So the experience starts with the work that we had, which Richard has just brought forward by Saila, and we formed the National Learning Alliance, for which its aim was to co-generate, share, and facilitate use of knowledge by projects, decision makers, and other stakeholders, so they can develop equitable, sustainable agriculture intensification in ways that benefit the poor smallholder farmers, especially the women and the youth. Next slide. And through this approach, we went through a number of activities as the National Learning Alliance. We worked on the land, customer land law in Malawi, which, despite being gazetted in the year 2016, it was facing a lot of resistance from landholders. We also looked at agricultural extension services, especially the extension policy, which was established, was approved in the year 2000, but it was not being operationalized. And again, there were concerns about the future of smallholder farmers. And the results from the work we've done on these policy documents, we have found that complexity of policy environment has been recognized, and stakeholders have shared their different views, interests, and perceptions that form their positions on different spheres of agriculture. And we have a number of specific outcomes, which the table in the next slide presents. I will not go through all the outcomes from the slide, but just to highlight that for the extension policy, our effort to bring together people from different places, including the farmer voices were heard in the extension policy. And now we have a new extension policy, which indeed takes into consideration the voices of the farmers who thought the extension services were not serving them. For the customer land law, yes, we brought people from different levels, from the community, from the districts, from the nation. And what we've seen is the voices of the people have indeed come forward. And we are now expecting to see a mutually acceptable land law in Malawi, which the poor farmers accept and the policymakers also accept. The issue of smallholder farmers is still an ongoing issue, but still the voices of the people on how the investments in agriculture should benefit the poor is now being heard, especially when it comes to all the ideas about land consolidation in Malawi. Next slide. Now, learning from the process of social learning through the Sahela work, we have applied the same to other extension work using the farmer research networks and the food policy dialogues. And specifically for the farmer research networks, next slide, what we have seen is indeed we've brought together farmers, government extension workers, researchers, and NGOs to create technologies and solve the problems that they face, such as poor soil fertility. And through this process of farmer research network, we have seen that indeed problems which are there in policy, like equalization among the farmers, issues of equity, the farmer research networks have become a viable way of making sure that extension policies become equitable in the way of approaching the farmers. The composition of those people in the groups have indeed proven that it's possible to achieve equalization in the process of doing extension policy. So next slide. We have also seen through the farmer research networks capacity being built.
You have
where
3 minutes.
Farmer research networks. Hello?
3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. So we have seen that farmers are indeed coming up with the innovations, which for a long time, most of the farmers have seen solutions to the problems that they face in the extension and in agriculture to come from outside. But now, through the farmer research networks, extension practice is changing to relying on local available knowledge and innovations in the area. Now we have, as I said, applied this approach to food systems as well, where we have interacted and brought together people from the community, the district, and the national level. And the results we have seen from food systems dialogues is that there's better understanding now about the link about agriculture and food systems. The trade-offs in agriculture, nutrition, and environment have been appreciated and recognized. And gender divisions are now coming out very clear and appreciated even at the community level. And we're anticipating that programs that will be coming from the district, from programmers, who have to be the ones that are paying attention to the trade-offs that exist in the food systems. Specifically on the diversity, it has come out very clear that indeed there's a lot of diversity in terms of indigenous food systems, and these are not appreciated in policies, and policies therefore have to be looking at diversity as important issue. The trade-offs have indeed been recognized, and people are using so many criteria in order to arrive at the decision that they want to make about what to produce and what to eat. Unfortunately, this diversity is not, the trade-offs are not easily appreciated, and we think it's a process that will take a lot of learning and managing issues together. Can I go down the next slide? Co-creation has indeed taken place in food systems, and we think this is also adding value to bringing together different actors working together on food systems and appreciating each other's position in the process. What lessons I think will be
I am giving you
here?
half a minute to wrap up. An extra half a minute to wrap up.
Yeah, what we've learned a lot is dialogue requires sustained interaction and deliberation for change to happen. Social learning can occur at different levels or scales between, but also changes are unlikely to happen with one individual event. Co-learning and the evidence is important for people to change as they see what it can contribute to make things happen. Decision-making is improved based on interactions and better relationships, and trusting environment is key to sharing knowledge. And my parting words are, rather than telling people what they should do, from social learning perspective, we have learned that it's better to engage with them, deliberate with them, and make decisions. And we know that change only comes when stakeholders are engaged and not educated. It requires one to negotiate. You only get what you negotiate for and not what you deserve. That's what I've learned from social learning, applying social learning in decision making to influence policy. Thank you so much.
Wow,
Prudence.
thank you so much, Diamond, and Rose, as well as Richard. I hope of the richness of the presentations. And I mean, I think there are similarities across all the three presentations. And if you look at, I think, the first part of it in terms of the process, how these learning networks are created, I think some ideas have been, insights have been shared, how that and how they actually work has been shared. But on the other side, the impact, what is coming out of that has also been shared. So we don't have a lot of time. So other than me asking the questions, I can see very many questions already in the chat. Let me see if I can pick a few that we can ask. There's one here by Peter. No, that was an answer. I think that was answered. Then there was one I saw here from, sorry, from Tanya. Richard, this is so interesting. I wonder if you could reflect on why policymakers tended to prefer the informal nature of the social learning spaces.
Yeah, thanks,
Richard.
Yes, yeah, very much. Thanks very much, Tanya. I think it was because they felt that within their workplace and the meetings with, particularly within government, they were very limited what they could and couldn't say. They didn't feel free to speak openly, and within those structures, others didn't feel free to speak openly. So the National Learning Alliance, by creating that safe space, they did feel free to speak openly and also to hear. That was also the crucial thing. So people could tell them what they really thought, not what they thought they wanted to hear. So they really appreciated that. Yeah, thanks.
Yep. I think there was a similar question maybe that I saw here. Somebody asking is the rationale behind the social learning. Is there, or is it that informal nature that's, somebody asked the question here.
I think, yeah, I think that was Matiwa. Yeah, I think
yes,
the crucial
yeah.
now, I think, in a sense, was to me, these issues are so complex. And I think social learning offers a route through complexity. So the logic is, because there are so many different perspectives, there's so much complexity, you have to bring the diverse perspectives around the table, around a particular issue to deal with that, complexity. You can't do it through a sort of extractive process of collecting information and try to come to a decision. You need the information, you need evidence, but you need to engage stakeholders around that complexity. And that's the sort of underlying philosophy, if you like, around thinking, I think. Yeah.
I guess it's similar approach to what Ross and Ross Boja was saying took place in the Andes, that intense interaction between policymakers and researchers and farmers. But maybe what I didn't get from Ross and is how the voices of the poor women get through the process or get heard. Ross.
Yeah. El proceso es a diferentes niveles, ¿no? En los territorios interactúan diferentes actores desde la política, como son los ministerios de agricultura, de ambiente, de salud, pero también están otras ONGs. Entonces, lo primero es estas reuniones de actores para consensuar una agenda. Entonces, ahí quienes tienen mucho que decir realmente son las productoras que están trabajando a través de asociaciones. Las mujeres hacen diferentes estrategias para involucrar a los gobiernos locales, sobre todo porque son los gobiernos quienes tienen el mandato de promover lo que es los temas de desarrollo y planificación participativa, presupuestaria dentro de los territorios. Entonces, las mujeres son quienes a través de su accionar, de sus actividades, utilizan estas estrategias, invitan a los tomadores de decisiones, a los gobiernos locales que visiten sus chacras, tienen reuniones con con las autoridades locales, con el cabildo, y comunican cuáles son sus intereses alrededor de lo que es la producción, alrededor de lo que es la agroecología y cuáles son estas demandas que tienen dentro de sus comunidades. Entonces hay una interacción continua con los gobiernos locales dentro de los territorios. Son ellas quienes hacen sus gestiones. Por otro lado, es importante cuando hay cualquier tipo de evento el hecho de coordinar a nivel de territorio con estos otros actores que da más peso a la voz de las mujeres, pero realmente los procesos de gestión, de cabildeo, es liderado por las productoras y tienen que mostrar, tienen sus fincas, sus chacras, donde pueden mostrar el trabajo que se ha hecho en agroecología o su vinculación en el mercado, que muchos de estos mercados son promovidos por los mismos gobiernos locales. El tema central es cómo se logra diferenciar la producción agroecológica dentro de un mercado convencional. Eso, Prudence. Gracias.
Prudence.
Thank you. There's a question from Sarah. Okay,
yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Yes,
Damo.
that's the one that I see.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask it. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I
don't have to
see Sarah wants to know how are issues from community level carried to the district level during social learning. I think there are two ways we approach this issue. The first thing that we do is we engage communities on the different issues, policy issues. And then when we go to the district, we have the results from our engagement with the community, but it also bring people from the community to sit together with the people at the district level. And then we discuss these things because we cannot bring everybody from the community to the district. So representatives come and engage with the district, but we back the discussions with what we discuss with the community at first. And the same thing happens at national level. At national level, we take representative from the district, representative from the community to engage with the people at the national level. That's how we do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Damon. Let me see if there are other questions. Okay, any other question from the floor? Anybody with a question?
Yes, Prudence.
Or if you have written a question and I'm asking.
Okay. I wrote a text in the chat. It looks like Damon is making a nuance between
but you can say it now that you have the floor.
Can I speak?
Hello?
Prudence.
Yeah, sorry, I was off.
Tamaka, you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in the presentation, it looks like Damon made a dichotomy between, or at least a nuance, between what he calls research and farmer research.
Sorry, yeah.
I don't know if you can clarify that for me.
But Tamaka?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's asked his
you
question.
Are muted.
He has asked the question, and I saw it in the chat as well. So the research that we're talking about here is the form research, where research institutions are busy carrying out research in agriculture, and they may do it without the farmers participating. Farmer research is research by the farmers, and what we're doing now is the farmers, researchers, extension workers are working together to do research to generate knowledge. Well, the first one is where purely the one who is deciding, setting the agenda and everything is a researcher from the research institution. But this one, farmer research, we are trying to empower the farmer to do research, but not working alone, but working together with researchers coming in to add value and extension to come in to add value, working together, generate knowledge and information, not for farmers to use only, but for everybody. Researchers have something to use, farmers have something to use, and extension has something to use from the knowledge generated by the team as a group.
Okay, thank you.
I've seen a hand from Gabriela.
Yes, thank you, and truly thank you to all the presenters. It was they made me reflect a lot. So this question goes to any of them. I was wondering, when you create these places for exchange of dialogues and learning, how do you best bridge between differences in language and vocabulary? So I'm thinking about farmers, extension agents, decision makers, policy makers. They all use different languages and vocabularies. So in your experience, what's the best way to bridge? Thank you so much.
Who wants to start? Diamond, do you want to start? Then Rose?
Yeah, I can start by saying that the differences are there in language. The differences are there in language.
Richard, if you still want to say something on that.
I think for a long time, knowledge has been power, language has been power. And for us, we're trying to see how the way people talk and present their things in their language should be the way we take from the community to the district and to the national level. And what we see is indeed there are problems, because some of the language used at community level is not clear to the district level and is not clear to the national level. But we try to interpret and explain, farmers try to explain things for these people to understand, so that policies can indeed take on their voices according to how things are happening on the ground. So operationalization of the terms and the language and so forth is really a big challenge, but we're trying to see how the language at local level should be the one influencing the other languages above.
Ross, you want to say something on that?
Yes, sí, realmente es un desafío, pero creo que un punto importante para nosotros ha sido el ponernos de acuerdo en ciertos temas y que todos estemos hablando el mismo idioma. Por ejemplo, la agroecología tiene múltiples interpretaciones para lo que es los gobiernos locales, para lo que es la gente, para lo que es las ONGs. Entonces, en estas reuniones de actores que existen en los territorios, la idea es que ciertos temas que son claves y que podrían ser conflictivos, llegamos a un acuerdo cuál es la interpretación que nosotros o cuál es el significado de agroecología para todos. Entonces, hay ciertos acuerdos en la forma en que estamos trabajando en el territorio que nos permite avanzar con una agenda conjunta. Eso de mi parte. Gracias, Prudence.
Richard?
Yeah, very quickly.
Final word?
Yeah, there's obviously yet another layer when you come from outside a country even, let alone, but even within the country, those are issues, as Diamond Ross have mentioned. I think one thing you can do is have sustained interaction. So don't make these one-off things, as Diamond said, try and make it sustained interaction. And the sustained interaction, you slowly, I think, really start to understand each other. So it's the sustained interaction is the thing I would try to emphasize, but it's a really good question. Yeah.
So keywords that have kept coming back: sustained interaction, sustained dialogue, seems to be key, and yeah, diverse stakeholders, diverse processes. Yeah, we are remaining with 5 minutes, and maybe I should start getting key insights, what people feel they're taking home from this. Anybody wants to share what their take home is from this discussion today? See a new message here. No. Anybody? Sarah, what are you taking home?
Prudence, before we go to what we take home, I was just wondering if that arrow on social learning then is, has another arrow coming down as well from top down, or maybe going in a circle. If that is going to be interactive and continuous and all that, because it seems to be very unidirectional for now. Maybe that speakers can say something about it.
Okay, before I give Richard, Peter wants to say something, and then Richard, you answer Sarah.
Yeah, I just want to mention that for me, some of the points that were made around process, around context, and especially what was mentioned in Richard's, that evidence-based is often what people are most comfortable with, but often there's a confirmation bias. And what is needed as well to influence is social mobilization, a movement, people and producers joined in an alliance to, yes, you need the science and the evidence, but you also need people to put pressure on politicians and on decision makers. And that to me is the combination which maybe will get us forward at least as fast, faster than what is happening in the absence of that. So that's a lesson I take away.
Yeah, making a strong case for the learning network approach here. Okay, Richard, there was a question for you from Sarah.
Sarah, yeah, okay. I think if I've understood it correctly, Sarah, one of the things that we tried to do with the social learning was sort of broadly follow that experiential learning cycle approach, where you conceptualize on what you think the situation is, you then plan, you do something, and then you reflect on it. And that cycle, and then having done that, you then move on to another cycle. That was kind of part of the underlying concept for what we were doing. Diamond could probably say to what extent it happened in reality, but I think it was a good frame of reference to try and have in mind that you plan, you do something, you reflect on it, and then you sort of say, okay, what do we learn from that? What does that really mean? And then you do another cycle of learning. That's what we tried to do. Yeah.
Yep. Any other takeaway, take home? Ross, are you taking away anything from what you have heard from the Sahila project or Sahila experience?
Para mí es súper importante, Prudence, el tema de que la incidencia política, los temas relacionados con las políticas públicas se dan a diferentes niveles, ¿no? Y siempre hay que tomar en cuenta que las influencias se tienen que dar desde lo local, mientras más local, mucho mejor, para ir hacia los tomadores de decisiones. Ese es mi mayor aprendizaje. Gracias.
Okay, and with that, I will leave you with 1 minute to prepare to go to the next session. Thank you, the 3 panelists, and all of you for your participation. Look forward to seeing you elsewhere. Yeah.
Thank you.